When Grandma looked at an ice cube tray, she didn't just see a tool for chilling water, she saw a kitchen secret weapon. From freezing leftovers to organizing tiny things around the house, she turned this humble plastic tray into a multitasking miracle. These aren't your average uses either. These are hacks that'll make you wonder why no one told you sooner. Let's dive into Grandma's 47 secret ice cube tray hacks that will blow your mind and make life easier. Grandma used her ice cube trays to freeze leftover coffee into little cubes, which she'd later drop into iced coffee so it never got watered down. On hot afternoons, she always had a rich, cool cup that stayed strong to the last sip. She did the same with leftover tea, keeping flavored cubes in the freezer for refreshing summer drinks. Nothing went to waste, and every drink stayed just the way she liked it, bold and chilled without losing its punch. Anytime Grandma had herbs about to turn, she'd chop them up, pop them into an ice cube tray, and cover them with olive oil before freezing. These little green and gold cubes were perfect for tossing straight into a hot skillet when she started a soup or sauce. Parsley, thyme, basil, you name it. She never bought dried herbs because her little oil cubes kept everything fresh, flavorful, and ready in a flash. She didn't stop at olive oil. Grandma froze tomato paste in tablespoon-sized cubes, too. You know how recipes always ask for just 1 spoon of paste and leave the rest to spoil? Not in her kitchen. She'd scoop paste into a tray, freeze it solid, then pop the cubes into a bag for future stews and sauces. She never let a single spoonful go to waste. During berry season, she'd freeze whole raspberries, blueberries, and sliced strawberries in trays of water or juice. These fruity cubes jazzed up lemonade, sparkling water, or even sangria when she had company over. The berries thawed slowly, infusing her drinks with sweetness and color. It made even a plain glass of water feel special, and the grandkids loved them too. Grandma even made yogurt bites using ice cube trays. She'd spoon in fruit-flavored yogurt, maybe add a few fresh berries, then freeze them into creamy little nuggets. They were perfect as after-school snacks, cool, tasty, and just the right size. If you've never tried frozen yogurt cubes on a hot summer day, you're missing out on a delightfully simple treat. Leftover wine never went to waste in Grandma's kitchen. She poured any remaining red or white into an ice tray and froze it for cooking later. A couple of cubes added to a simmering pan of mushrooms or beef stew brought all the flavor without needing to open a new bottle. It was her little secret for rich sauces and gravies. She also used trays to portion out broth. Anytime she boiled a chicken or cooked vegetables, she'd save the stock, let it cool, and pour it into trays. Once frozen, she'd store the cubes in a bag and pull them out as needed, 1 or 2 for rice, 3 or 4 for soup. It saved space in the freezer and gave every dish homemade flavor. Peanut butter and chocolate? Oh yes. Grandma melted peanut butter with a little coconut oil and poured it into trays to make frozen bites. Sometimes she added a dab of jam or a drizzle of melted chocolate. These were her guilt-free mid-afternoon indulgences, easy to make, easy to store, and always ready for when she needed a pick-me-up. She even used ice cube trays to freeze eggs. If she had too many, she'd crack them into each compartment, scramble them with a fork, and freeze them raw. Later, she'd thaw them in the fridge and use them for baking or scrambled breakfasts. It was perfect when prices spiked or during holidays when stores ran out. To soothe puffy eyes, Grandma kept green tea ice cubes in a special tray. She'd steep strong tea, pour it into a tray, and freeze it. When her eyes felt tired or her face needed refreshing, she'd wrap a cube in a cloth and dab gently. The cold, plus the tannins, helped reduce puffiness and refreshed her skin. No fancy creams required. In the summertime, Grandma made lemonade pops in trays. She'd mix fresh lemon juice with honey and water, pour it into the molds, and insert toothpicks after the mixture started to freeze. These mini pops were just enough to cool you down without the sugar overload of store-bought treats. Tangy, sweet, and full of homemade goodness. She froze buttermilk in tablespoons for baking. Since recipes often only call for a few tablespoons, she poured the rest of the carton into a tray and froze it. No more wasting buttermilk or skipping recipes that called for it. Every scone and pancake came out rich and tender thanks to her frozen stash. She made butter bombs for biscuits. Grandma would blend cold butter with fresh herbs and a touch of garlic, then press it into a tray. When it was dinner time, she'd pop out a cube, melt it on warm biscuits, or toss it on vegetables. It added instant flavor and made meals feel extra special, even if it was just meatloaf night. For guests, she'd make flower ice cubes. She picked small, edible flowers, like violets or pansies, and froze them in distilled water. They looked stunning in a glass of lemonade or punch. People always asked how she did it, and she'd just smile and say, "It's nothing fancy, just something I picked up along the way." She made vinegar cubes for cleaning. Grandma filled a tray with white vinegar, then tossed in lemon peels or rosemary sprigs for scent. Once frozen, she'd run the cubes through the garbage disposal to clean and freshen the drain. It left the kitchen smelling bright and took care of any lingering odors. Simple and genius. She poured melted chocolate into a tray and added nuts, dried fruit, or marshmallows to each section. Once chilled, she had perfect bite-sized chocolate clusters. They were great for gifting during the holidays or for satisfying a sweet tooth without grabbing a candy bar. For the garden, Grandma froze aloe vera cubes. Whenever she had a sunburn, rash, or bug bite, she'd pop out a cube and rub it on her skin. The cold soothed the irritation, and the aloe did its healing magic. She always kept a tray of these in the back of the freezer just in case. She organized jewelry with old trays too. Each cube held a pair of earrings, rings, or small pins. She stored the trays in a drawer to keep everything visible and untangled. It made picking accessories a breeze and kept her vintage pieces looking their best. Grandma turned trays into mini paint palettes for craft time. Each cube got a different color, and when the kids were done painting, she'd cover the tray with plastic wrap and put it in the fridge. The paint stayed moist for days, and there was no mess to clean up. It was arts and crafts the smart way. She used trays to make single-serve cookie dough balls. She'd scoop dough into each compartment, freeze until solid, then pop them into a bag. When she craved fresh cookies, she baked a few straight from frozen. No waste, no temptation to eat a whole dozen, just warm, gooey cookies when you needed them. To help with portion control, Grandma used trays to freeze mashed potatoes, gravy, and even stuffing during the holidays. After big meals, she'd spoon leftovers into the tray and freeze them. Later on, she'd reheat just what she needed without thawing a whole container. It saved space, time, and kept her meals balanced. No more scraping together meals or wasting extras. She froze citrus juice in cubes, lemon, lime, and orange. Each cube was the perfect size for a recipe or glass of water. She even zested the rinds before juicing and froze those separately in a little bag. Anytime a recipe called for fresh juice, she was ready in seconds with no mess and no waste. That was her way of always cooking with fresh ingredients, even out of season. When soup cooled, Grandma portioned it into trays. These soup cubes could be popped into a saucepan for a single serving, perfect when she didn't want to cook a full batch again. This trick worked for chili, stew, and even pasta sauce. Her freezer became a treasure chest of homemade meals just waiting to be warmed. She used trays to freeze coconut milk. You know how those cans only get half used before going bad? Not in her house. She froze the rest in cubes, ready for Thai curry, smoothies, or creamy rice pudding. Every last drop got used up, and she never had to worry about waste or missing ingredients mid-recipe. For parties, Grandma made coffee cubes with cream and sugar already mixed in. She poured sweetened coffee into the tray and served them in milk for a creamy cafe-style drink. Guests thought it was fancy, but really it was just her clever planning and an old ice tray doing the work. She loved freezing cucumber water. Thinly sliced cucumbers with mint leaves in each cube made for spa-style refreshment. On hot days, she'd drop them into her pitcher for a cold, calming drink that was light, refreshing, and so much better than sugary sodas. It was her little secret to staying cool and hydrated all summer long. When arthritis flared up, Grandma made cinnamon and clove tea, cooled it, and froze it into small cubes. She'd wrap one in cloth and press it against her aching hands. The warmth of the spices would ease tension as the cold soothed the swelling. It was a homemade remedy that brought relief without pills or ointments. She even used ice cube trays for dog treats. She'd mix peanut butter, banana, and a splash of yogurt, then freeze the blend into cubes for her pup. On warm days, the dog would happily chew on one for a cool, healthy treat. They were cheap, easy to make, and filled with good stuff. Grandma froze leftover smoothie mix. When she made too much, she poured it into trays and froze the rest. Next time she wanted a smoothie, she'd blend the frozen cubes with a splash of juice or milk. No ice needed. It kept the flavor rich and creamy, just like she liked it. She also froze whipped cream. When she had leftovers from dessert, she piped little dollops into a tray and froze them. The next time she made pie or cocoa, she'd plop a frozen whipped cream cube on top. It softened into a fluffy cloud that made everything taste freshly topped. To stretch her budget, Grandma would make homemade stock from veggie scraps and freeze the broth in cubes. Onion skins, celery ends, carrot peels, all went into a pot, simmered, and became liquid gold. She strained it and poured it into trays, then used those cubes in nearly every savory dish she cooked. She made baby food in trays too. She'd steam apples, carrots, or peas, puree them, and freeze in individual portions. When the little ones visited, she just thawed a cube or two. No jars, no preservatives, just pure homemade nutrition from Grandma's kitchen. In her bathroom, she kept milk and honey cubes for skincare. She mixed equal parts milk and honey, froze the blend, and rubbed the cubes gently on her face before rinsing. The cold closed her pores, the milk softened her skin, and the honey gave a natural glow. It was an old remedy passed down from her mother. She kept lemon juice and zest cubes on hand for cleaning. Lemons are natural degreasers, and she'd drop a cube into a warm dishpan or microwave-safe bowl to clean the microwave with steam. It cut through grime and filled the kitchen with a fresh, clean scent. No harsh chemicals needed. For baking, Grandma pre-measured cookie dough, cake batter, or even muffin mix into trays. She'd pop out what she needed and bake fresh any time without dirtying bowls. It made holidays easier, and her house always smelled like something just came out of the oven. In the summer, she made fruit cubes with bits of kiwi, mango, or pineapple in coconut water. These were hydrating, sweet, and perfect to nibble when it was too hot to eat anything heavy. Kids loved them, and so did Grandma when the sun was high. When her hands got dry, she'd freeze lotion cubes. She filled a tray with thick, unscented lotion and let it set in the fridge. When applied cold, it soothed her skin after working in the garden or doing dishes. She'd massage one onto her hands while watching TV and let the moisture soak in. She even used trays for organizing hardware: screws, tacks, safety pins. Each kind got its own cube. The tray fit neatly in a drawer and made finding the right piece easy. She called it her junk drawer without the junk, and it stayed tidier than most toolboxes. She kept mouthwash cubes in the freezer. For a quick refresh, she'd pop one in her mouth and let it melt slowly. It was like a breath mint, but colder and longer lasting. It was especially handy before guests arrived or after a garlicky dinner. She used trays to measure portions of pancake batter. Each cube was about one perfect pancake. On busy mornings, she'd toss a few on the griddle without even thinking. The pancakes came out the same size every time, and breakfast was served in minutes. For beauty, Grandma froze cucumber juice with a splash of rose water. These cubes were her morning refresher. She'd glide one over her face to reduce puffiness and brighten her complexion before church or lunch with friends. It was her homemade spa trick. She froze cubes of broth with garlic and ginger for quick stir-fry flavor. It was like having a flavor bomb ready to go. 1 or 2 cubes in a hot pan and dinner was halfway done. Stir-fried veggies, noodles, or rice, all tasted like they'd simmered for hours. She made tea bombs by freezing concentrated herbal tea. 1 cube added to hot water made a strong cup, no steeping needed. Chamomile, peppermint, or hibiscus were her favorites. It was her way of having a quick, comforting cup without waiting. Grandma turned leftover frosting into frozen treats. She scooped it into trays and froze the little domes. Later, she used them to top warm brownies or cookies, or just snuck one when no one was looking. Sweet, creamy, and totally irresistible. She always had broth-based veggie puree cubes for thickening soups. When a soup was too thin, she'd pop in a carrot potato cube or a spinach blend to give it body and boost the nutrients. It was like instant homemade flavor, tucked away for just the right moment. She froze coconut water with chia seeds for an energizing pick-me-up. 1 cube in a water bottle kept her